my next part, which is the promotion of fluoridation, is unprofessional and unscientific. For any professional in the audience, you will be astounded by this statement from the American Dental Association in 1979. Individual dentists must be convinced that they need not be familiar with scientific reports of laboratory and field investigations on fluoridation to be effective participants in the promotion program, and that non-participation is overt neglect of professional responsibility. Now that's staggering. What other profession do you know that would say to those members, you don't need to be an expert in your fields to go out and support a program? Could you imagine a bridge builder? You don't have to know everything about bridge design to go out and support that bridge over there. And if you don't go out and support the building of that bridge over there, you're neglecting your professional responsibility. This is Alice in Wonderland stuff. It is utterly unprofessional. For over 60 years, the fluoridation debate has been controlled largely by the dental profession. This profession has a single focus on teeth, with little or no expertise on other health issues. That's how they see us. Great big mouths with lots of teeth on them and little legs underneath. We're just a mouth of teeth to these people. And of course, you've got about 0.3 of a tooth surface over here, which is dominating their whole vision of those mouths. And the opponents of fluoridation see us like this, or equally obnoxious. They see brains and thyroids and stomachs and pelvises and all that kind of stuff. But here's the bottom line. I've already said it several times, but it's worth repeating. There's been no investigation in Australia of a possible relationship between the consumption of fluoridated water and lowered IQ in children, arthritic symptoms in adults, hypothyroidism, increased bone fractures in children, earlier onset of puberty, Alzheimer's disease in adults, and nor have studies investigated formally the many anecdotal reports that some individuals are highly sensitive to fluoride. You just are not doing the studies. And I won't go into this. I'm running out of time. So let me just go to this. Here's the bottom line. If you don't look, you don't find. And the absence of studies does not mean the absence of harm. So first of all, if a dentist gets on this platform and tells you that fluoridation is safe, shut them up immediately. They have no qualifications to justify telling the public that fluoridation is safe, because they don't know about fluoride's impact on the bone, the brain, or anything else. They've got no right to talk about it. That's the first thing. The second thing is, if they say, well, we've been doing this for 50 years and we don't see any evidence of harm, then you say the absence of studies does not mean the absence of harm. It's Monty Python time again. You ready for it? Dr. Peter Coody, the Chief Dental Officer of Canada, told an audience in Dryden, Ontario, and I was sitting in that audience, and we videotaped the whole of this presentation. He said, and he was of Irish extraction, I walked down your high street today, and I didn't find anyone growing horns. And you've been fluoridated for 40 years. Now I have a vision of one of the research departments in Health Canada. It's the horn department. And they have specialists in cow horns, bull horns, deer horns, moose horns. And these people very, very, very carefully and conscientiously comb Canada, looking to see if anyone is growing horns. And having investigated very, very thoroughly to see if anybody's growing horns, they concluded, no, nobody's growing horns. And we've looked at the whole of Canada, and that tells us that fluoridation is safe. Absolutely safe. Incredible, but true. He actually said this. I'm happy to tell you that 3 weeks later, the community of Dryden voted to stop fluoridation after about 30 years, after 40 years. They weren't convinced that their lack of bones meant that their brains were not impacted. So I think it's fairly clear that at least my position is that the science actually indicates that fluoridation should be ended, even if you don't believe that the ethics should end it. And if you could look at our website, and particularly the health database, to see everything documented. You'll find on our homepage, Fluoride Alert, a professional statement calling for an end to fluoridation worldwide. And if there's a professional in the audience, this is the favor I would ask of you. I'm going to be out of the country, away from my home for a lot of time until June. I won't bother you with my schedule. It's pretty intense. And my wife is getting a bit pissed off. So the way I can be welcomed home, if there's any professional in the audience, whether you're a dentist, a doctor, a PhD in any field, a geologist, a veterinarian, a dental hygienist, a nurse — we have more nurses signing this than any other category — a pharmacist, anybody with a pharmaceutical certificate of any kind, please go to our homepage and sign online. Right now we got 3,000, I think it's 3,787, something like that. Every signature is worth its weight in gold, because they have made such a big thing of the only opponents of fluoridation, a bunch of wackos, that the more professionals, more qualified people that we get to sign this, lawyers included, the better our case will be. And also, if you go to our homepage, you'll find this videotape available online. It's only actually 28 minutes. I've said 29 minutes. On this videotape, you will hear 15 scientists explaining why fluoridation should be stopped. One of them is Sir Ian Chalmers, who's a specialist in what evidence constitutes good evidence for medicine. Sir Ian Chalmers from the UK. Arvid Carlsson, the Nobel Prize winner from Sweden. 3 people that were involved in writing this report. 2 former employees of the EPA, one a specialist in risk assessment, a lawyer from the Sierra Club, Professor Vivian Howard from Northern Ireland, who's one of the brightest people I've ever met, and 2 dentists who had previously been pro-fluoridation, and myself. Oh, and Phyllis Mullinex. And Phyllis Mullinex did the first animal study that showed that fluoride damaged the brain in 1995. And the moment that that was accepted for publication, she was fired from the Forsyth Dental Center, and she hasn't worked in academia since. That sends a chilling message to researchers in the United States. Fluoride is not a safe subject to do research on. Pretty disgusting. And now our book. And we wrote this book because we believe that this gives you a weapon. I mean, hitherto, when you've taken this argument to doctors and dentists, they've probably looked down their nose at you and treated as if you were something the dog had brought in, that you just don't know what you're talking about. Their eyes roll. But now with this book, I think when you read this, you'll know more about this issue than any government official in Australia, any doctor, any dentist in Australia. Well, no, that's not true. You've got Dr. Andrew Harms, who knows a lot about this. But you know a lot more about this subject than the proponents. So it's your way of making sure you don't get put down. And this videotape, I think, is an ideal weapon to give to your doctors and dentists and ask them to tell you if you should be worried or not after they've looked at it. The next step, we have done our job as scientists. We have outlined our case in detail. We have documented every fact and argument we have presented in that book. Now we need the Australian health authorities to do their job. And their job is either to respond scientifically to our case or admit that fluoridation was a huge mistake and stop it now. There is no middle ground. If they cannot produce a cogent scientific response to our book and all the other arguments out there, then they have to admit that this was a mistake and stop it.